Why? Timothy looked at Leslie and said in confusion, I think that since I made a mistake, I should confess and apologize to her. Tim, I know you are better at business than I am, but you are not as good as me when it comes to dealing with women. You should know that women are not as simple as you think. Leslie stepped forward and patted his shoulder. With the air of a man with experience, he said to Timothy, You see, you love Melissa in your heart. She also loves you. The two of you vowed to respect one another. Honor, love, cherish. Now that you made a mistake due to a momentary impulse, once she finds out that you did so after drinking, it will always be something that she is wary of all her life. No matter how you go about obtaining her forgiveness, there will always be a knot in her heart she won't be able to get rid of. If this continues, there will always be a lack of trust in your relationship. Regardless of whether Leslie was trying to scare him or not, Timothy furrowed his brows when he heard this, and his heart beat a little faster. But if you don't tell Melissa what happened, she will think that it was just that you had changed your ways and treat her even better. She will feel happier and more secure in your marriage. Leslie saw Tim's thoughtful look and continued to advise, Get off your high horse. What person does not have their own secrets? I would venture to guess that your beloved Melissa has a secret or two that she is hiding from you. What nonsense. Timothy thought for a while and then reiterated his position. If you do something wrong, you have to admit your mistake. The feeling shared between two people must be absolutely honest and sincere. Okay, Tim. Be truthful with Melissa and tell her that you had an indescribable night with another woman. See if she faints in anger. Leslie shrugged his shoulders, and his face had an expression that said, If you don't listen to me, old man, you will realize that I am right and you are wrong. However, when he heard what Leslie said, Timothy could not help but hesitate. If he told Melissa that he had made a mistake, would she really be as angry as he said and faint? Timothy did not want to cause that scene. He was busy with work all day and rarely made it home at a decent hour. Keith did more around the house than he did. He already carried his guilt on his heart over not being as present as he felt he should be. But now he had cheated on her, and that carried the possibility of impacting Melissa's health negatively. Wasn't that a heinous crime? Timothy had made a terrible mistake, and he wanted to be honest with his wife. However, he needed to find a suitable opportunity to talk to Melissa and confess to her what he had done. But when? Timothy frowned, his eyebrows furrowing as he fell into deep thought. Tim, can you stop thinking about it? It was clearly a matter of 3 minutes, but you have spent half of an hour thinking about it. Melissa found it funny when he saw him, who was all-powerful in the business world, getting caught up in his feelings about the relationship between men and women. Timothy was still immersed in his own thoughts and didn't pay any attention to him. Good men who are absolutely loyal to their wives are rare. Leslie shook his head. Suddenly, he seemed to have remembered something and shared it with Timothy. By the way, Tim, today is the first exhibition held by the general manager and designer of Sunderby Styles, Quentin. After returning to the country, do you want to come with me to take a look? After all, the two of us still plan to work together with them. You can go and take a look yourself. He did not even lift his head. He had been dragged around by Leslie the night before, drinking, and look what had happened. After that, he would never go out with Leslie again. Only by staying away from the root of his crime could he be a completely good man. Don't, Tim, Leslie advised. You should come with me. This is the first time we have cooperated with Sunderby Styles. We have to do some on-site inspection, right? I heard from your secretary that the contract model for the Godot Group, Annie Lee, has also accepted the endorsement of Sunderby Styles. But if you don't want me to go, shouldn't we at least go and support her? Though sometimes Melissa could confuse him a little, he was generally pretty good at figuring out someone's ultimate goal. Leslie started in with a flattering response, but was interrupted by Timothy. What are you getting at? He snapped. Annie Lee being able to make you, the CEO of the Lynch Group's jewelry company, appear is already considered quite the honor. Timothy shook his head. Speaking of Annie Lee and Leslie, the two of them caused quite the confusion themselves. On the surface, Leslie was surrounded in a sea of women. However, Annie Lee was an exception. Even if Leslie was immersed in women, he could find Annie Lee by his side. Not only that, Leslie had also signed a contract with her before she became famous. He spent a lot of money to support her, and now Annie Lee was almost always pushed on the front line when new models were being booked. Unfortunately, Annie Lee only knew how to pout and act cute. She was otherwise pretty dull. No matter how much money Leslie threw in her direction, Annie Lee only seemed to know how to be pretty. According to Jason, the real reason why Leslie treated Annie Lee differently was because after she had plastic surgery, Annie Lee looked very similar to a woman he had fallen for in college. However, that woman went to America right after, and he had never heard from her again. As for the relationship between that woman and Leslie, Timothy did not know any details, and Leslie had never offered any. But one thing was certain. Ever since she had gone to America, the woman around Leslie had started to become a revolving door. Later on, with Annie Lee, Leslie's situation had become a little more stable, but never completely. "Are you going to come with me or not, Tim?" Leslie saw that Timothy was still indifferent after talking for so long. He became somewhat anxious. "Tim, the reason I called you to that clothing exhibition today isn't just to get you to support Annie Lee, but also to assess the needs of Sunderby Styles." Timothy picked up the documents and flipped through them one by one. Leslie lost his confidence when he saw Timothy's stubborn look. He was really a man of his word. He probably would only change his mind because of the matter with his wife. Leslie's eyes lit up. He looked at him and said, "Oh, right, Tim. Aren't you feeling guilty about going out with another woman for the night?" "Get lost." Timothy didn't even raise his head. This kid really knew what to say. "Goodness, Tim, don't be so angry." Leslie smiled. "Look, this Quentin is a famous fashion designer. The design must be pretty good. Although this is Quentin's home ground, there will be other fashion designers present. When the time comes, if you fancy someone's design style, let me design a unique dress for Melissa. She'll definitely be very happy." Timothy heard what Leslie said and immediately looked up. He thought for a moment and remembered that there were only a few fashion designers who made high-end outfits for Melissa. If he changed to a new designer this time, it might make Melissa happy. Thinking about this, Timothy finally acquiesced and agreed to go and see the clothing exhibition. "So, Tim, if you go, it will definitely be beneficial, and nothing bad could come of it." Leslie saw that there was a chance and quickly tried to persuade him. Timothy did not say anything. He just tapped on the smooth table with his index finger. He thought about what he had left to do today and nodded in the end. "I hope I can meet a good designer at the fashion show." "As you wish." Leslie patted his chest and said. It was already 10 o'clock in the morning. The morning sun shone on Harburton. The autumn breeze gently blew the leaves on both sides of the road. A car whizzed past, and the yellow leaves on the ground danced. Anya wore a slightly dated professional suit and once again stood on the ground floor of the Sunderby Styles headquarters building. Anya looked up at the sunny sky and took a deep breath. I can finally return to Sunderby Styles to work again. It had only been a short time since she came to Harburton, and she experienced a lot. First, she met Timothy at the cocktail party, and then she lost her job for no known reason. She was embarrassed when she saw her best friend quarreling with her mother-in-law because of her son. Then she met Timothy again at another event and proceeded to sleep with him. Hopefully this streak of bad luck was to come to an end now. Finally, after admiring the scenery for a moment, she walked toward the large front doors. Anya, you have to keep living. You have to work hard. Anya secretly encouraged herself as she walked into the building of Sunderby Styles with her head held high. Because Anya was a modest person, No matter what the position or power the other party held, Anya made it a point to be very polite. So even the security guards at Sunderby Styles were already familiar with her. "Miss Radcliffe has returned to work." When the security guard saw Anya coming, he greeted her with a smile. The work environment had always been so warm and homely here. She was relieved to see that nothing had changed, and grateful that she managed to get her job back even more after their welcome. Anya returned the smiles and walked briskly toward the elevator. She was familiar with the way to the Human Resources Department. David Hendricks was already waiting for Anya at the entrance to the department. David was in his 50s, and his hair had become a little sparse. He was of average height and had a sincere look about him. When he was young, he had worked with the founder of Sunderby Styles, Darren Sunderby. The two of them were the kind of friends that last a lifetime. He would forever be loyal to him. Now, his son, Quentin, had been appointed as the general manager of Sunderby Styles. David took the initiative to take on the responsibility of assisting him. He saw Anya walking towards him with a smile on her face. He was the one who recruited and subsequently fired her. Each time, it was due to the request of someone he could not afford to offend. He felt that he would need to treat Anya carefully from now on. However, she seemed rather amiable. At least she was not an arrogant and domineering woman who bullied others with her power. "Miss Radcliffe, you're here." The smile on his face was fixed. "Yes, sir." Anya nodded to him and said humbly, "Thank you, Mr. Hendricks, for giving me the chance to come back to work. I will be a hard worker." He heard Anya not blaming him for his incompetence, but thanking him instead. It made him feel a little embarrassed. He nodded and walked into the office with her. He took out the contract he had prepared. The process of Anya signing was very smooth. The matter was settled in minutes. Anya looked at the black and white contract and the name that she had signed. She instantly felt lighter. She finally did not have to worry about her son's living expenses and school fees. "Come with me. I would like to show you to your office." David decided to personally escort her to let her know that she was important. "Then I will be glad to have you." Anya nodded in response to him as she followed behind. "The design department of our company is on the 22nd floor. Your colleagues there are very good at what they do, and the working atmosphere is relatively relaxed. You must have experienced it during your internship." David chatted with Anya as he walked into the elevator with her. Yes. Anya remembered her internship in the design department of Sunderby Styles and did not comment. She just nodded slightly. Just when she wanted to press the button to close the door, a large group of people rushed toward the elevator. It seemed that there was an urgent matter of some sort. Anya pressed the wait button to hold the doors open for the group. At this time, David, who was standing beside Anya, suddenly walked out of the elevator. He smiled and said to one of the men, "Mr. Sunderby, hello." Mr. Sunderby? Was it Quentin who promoted her? The young and promising fashion designer, as well as the general manager of Sunderby Styles? Anya was quick-witted. She quickly followed David's gaze and saw a man with a gentle and light temperament. Surrounded by a large group of people, he calmly walked toward him. It was autumn now, and Quentin was wearing a high-quality greenish-gray wool shirt. There were unique patterns on it that showed off how exquisite the craftsmanship was. The embroidery of the sleeves and collar made people's eyes light up. It added a romantic and artistic temperament to this warm and bright man. Anya could not help but look at this man's face. His hair was slightly curly, and his skin was a creamy sandalwood. It was as fine as porcelain, and what left a deep impression on Anya was the man's eyes were light and bright, exuding a luminous aura, the kind that gave off that faint feeling that one could not get too close to it without being consumed. He was radiant. Wow, our company's general manager is so charismatic. Anya immediately turned from a single mother with a 4-year-old son ready to take on the business world to an infatuated girl. She used the cover of her long eyelashes to secretly size him up. Yeah, Quentin nodded to David. Ever since he entered the elevator with them, his thin lips had been tightly pursed, as if he was troubled by something. Oh, right, Mr. Sunderby. When David saw Quentin, he suddenly remembered that Quentin had specifically praised Anya's work, so he planned to do him a favor. He introduced Anya to Quentin. Mr. Sunderby, this young lady by my side is Anya. You admired her work. Now she is an employee of our design department.